So what I'm going to talk about is obviously one of the most talked about things right now with just the whole LARPing situation, everything about that type of stuff that's just been happening, especially surrounding Techno LARP. I kind of want to talk about, I guess, the same thing that everyone's talked about with Techno LARP, and it's just the absolute ridiculous lack of social awareness that this guy has to not understand what he is doing is wrong and not understand why people are actually mad about him doing this. And I also kind of want to talk a little bit about like why LARPing content as it is like most of the time is just completely different than what Techno LARP was actually doing. So for those who somehow don't know what is going on with this Techno LARP thing, there's basically a trend going on YouTube where it's just people who are LARPing as content creators, basically just like parodying content creators in a way that's just kind of having fun with it and having fun with the type of content. And as a result, this resulted in someone becoming Technoblade LARP version. So they became known as Techno LARP. And a lot of people thought this was kind of weird for a lot of reasons. One, Technoblade, obviously beloved person who has passed away. The overwhelming majority of people, I think actually every other LARPing thing that I've seen is of someone who is currently alive. Who, the way that Techno LARP was kind of playing his character was trying to make it seem like he was effectively trying to replace Technoblade in a way that a lot of people who miss Technoblade would then go to his content, and he tried to make it as one-to-one as humanly possible instead of, I guess, playing it up a little bit and being a little bit of a parody type of person, which was obviously a big issue because it made so many people uncomfortable about this. And so obviously there were a lot of criticisms with Technolarp because once again, he's kind of taking advantage of a lot of fans who miss Technoblade and also kind of spitting on the name of a dude who is dead. And that's kind of a massive issue. The thing that kind of spurred me to make this video was that Technolarp is getting shut down basically because Technoblade's dad finally said that he was uncomfortable with Technolarp making this and asked him to shut down the channel. And it kind of shouldn't have ever have gotten to this point where Technoblade's dad had to specifically ask Technolarp to shut down the channel. I think this guy should have had the social awareness or just the mental capacity to think a little bit about why this is an issue for him to, I guess, LARP Technoblade in comparison to all the other people who are LARPing creators. And the crazy thing too is that people had issues with him like a few days ago, but as like the last few days have developed and as we've gotten more information about Technolarp, I mean, like we've had the most critical videos, the penguins, whatever you call them, penguins ear videos about his actual like chat back and forth on a live stream with Technolarp about why Technolarp does what he does and like what he's making money off of it. And a lot of people had assumed, and because he had like talked about doing this before, that he was not making any money off this LARPing thing. Not he wasn't making any money off of Technoblade's image. A lot of people were under the assumption that he was donating a lot of charity. And eventually got revealed that he did have his own personal donation link under the donation link to the Tiltify for charity. He had an affiliate code for a Minecraft serving hosting company, which he said he didn't get any money from. He just got the servers for free. So we're hoping that that's the case. But I think a lot of people seeing the development of assuming that he was making no money off of it and it was all going to charity to kind of just getting this increase in development that he actually may be making his own money off of this himself for his own personal gain, obviously threw a lot of people off when it came to the intentions of him doing this. And that's just one issue, especially because he had posted on like his community page, how much money, what percent of money do you think should go to me? You know, I spend some money on these videos. What percent of money do you think should go to the poor little guy like me who makes this video, and then the rest will go to charity? That also is something that kind of looked a lot weird. And a lot of people had expressed their unhappiness with Technolarp as a person. I've seen Tubbo talk about it, Sneakstack talk about it, Simon from Hypixel talked about it, because a lot of people were uncomfortable with a dude who was just trying to imitate, and it seemed like replace their dead friend. It was very weird. And another thing that's especially weird was when people were replying to Simon from Hypixel about just the way Techno LARP was handling the entire situation. It makes him just look like a total douchebag, especially just with the way he's addressing Technoblade's dad and the way he's just taking Technoblade's uncomfortable responses and just saying that he's uncomfortable. He doesn't know how to feel as a green light go ahead Discord screenshots that people took of Technolarp, which basically shows just how much of a dismissive little piece of shit he is to any potential feelings that Technoblade has, or Technoblade's dad has. He says stuff like along the line saying, no, if he says stop, it's an instant rebrand or deletion depending on what he says. I only answer to him. So kind of saying that only person he cares about right now is Technoblade's dad. He's putting a lot of pressure on Technoblade's dad to make a choice here. And he's also not listening to any of the potential friends of Technoblade also saying they, who personally know Technoblade, who personally knew Technoblade, being uncomfortable with this. He was placing an absolutely weird amount of just pressure onto Technoblade's dad to be the sole voice on whether or not he should be able to LARP Another big thing too was like him playing with Skeppy, and he said like, "Oh, because I did this collaboration with Skeppy, and Skeppy kind of reached out to me. Yeah, well, yeah, it's entirely acceptable. It makes it entirely okay." Which makes it also weird because he did say once again that Technoblade's dad is like the final say in this, but then he also says that Skeppy's opinion matters here too. Well, then that makes the entire collab okay because as long as Skeppy said it was fine, then that's entirely acceptable. It seems like he's kind of moving the goalposts a lot in this scenario. And this was another like big thing about him saying like, oh, he's not been told specifically not to LARP Technoblade. Technoblade's dad has kind of just been on the fence here, and he doesn't know really to say. So because of that, I don't have to change it, even though there's a lot of people saying that they're really uncomfortable with what I'm doing. I don't have to. It's not something I need to do, which just kind of seems like a really douchebaggery way to handle the situation. And then once again, he did like the most just, oh, no, it's not my fault, actually. It's not my fault, guys. It's not my fault type of reaction to this of all time, which is saying that nobody has to watch it. Nobody needs to watch my content. When this is in response to someone saying that Technoblade's fans are friends, Technoblade's friends are legitimately uncomfortable with him doing it. His response was, oh, no one has to watch it. You may know the guy personally, but no one has to watch my content. This is what kind of like the biggest issue with this guy's. Actually, no, it's not even the biggest issue because once again, he could potentially be making money off of Technoblade's image. It's kind of crazy that it's like such a massive lack of understanding for why people are mad. And so, like, obviously, I think this is a turbo loser move. I think his situation is vastly different than any of the LARPing stuff because once again, it's a unique scenario where he is kind of LARPing a dead person, and it seems like he's trying to replace them, especially when he starts collabing with his friends. If you got like Skeppy LARP, maybe the situation might be better, but once again, it still doesn't change the scenario of who he is LARPing for. And I think the fact that he's just permanently trying to like put an immense amount of pressure on Technoblade's dad, who I don't think he really wants to just or ever thought he'd have to weigh the potential possibility of someone impersonating his dead son in a way that no one could have ever predicted. It kind of puts a lot of just mental strain on the dad. We can see it because he literally said he didn't know how to feel at it for such a long time. And it felt like because Technolarp was just being a turbo loser about the entire scenario, it made more and more people ask Technoblade's dad about it, and eventually just made him have to like finally confront this decision that I don't think he ever would have thought he would have made. Technolarp had the lack of awareness to understand why this entire scenario is different than everything else. It kind of forced everyone involved with who knew Technoblade personally to just be in an unbelievably uncomfortable situation because they had to once again, I guess, deal with someone who was trying to impersonate someone that they knew who tragically passed away. That's a massive reason for why this is an issue, and not because he's just LARPing and like potentially taking people's contents. Another thing too that was absolutely crazy is because Most Critical had talked about him before and like talked about him in the video. Obviously, he was trying to say that a lot of the hate that he got from people was from Moist Critical's video, which don't think the guy would ever say personally, let's go attack this dude and just hate on him and send him death threats and stuff like that. That's absolutely crazy. But another thing that he did was kind of crazy is he went on fucking Penguin LARP Zero or whatever the fuck's like live stream when he said that he wasn't making any content after like people were getting mad at him and he was trying to see the situation develop. He literally went on a dude who he got mad at LARPing thing to talk about the LARP scenario before he talked to the actual dude who was like made the video saying why him being techno LARP's a bad thing. That was one of the things that actually sat the worst with me is because he's just kind of like making it a bit of a showmanship here where instead of addressing the issue like in an actual legitimate way, he goes on the LARP dude's channel to then, I guess, talk about it instead. That seems kind of ridiculous. And obviously, I want to point this out too at the end of this video, just to talk about what makes the actual like good LARP content fine and acceptable. Other than the fact that they're making LARP content of people who are actually alive and didn't tragically pass away. And I think one of the best people to look at is I think the guy who started this entire LARP thing, which is Larpaplier, and looking at what makes his videos different that he makes and what makes this acceptable LARP. So this is Larpaplier's most recent video called Slender Hospice. Well, I guess it's the most recent video where he made a video talking about why he did this channel because I'm assuming a lot of people were getting mad at LARPing stuff because the Technoblade situation, Techno LARP situation. So let's just watch like the first 30 seconds of this video together and see if we can understand what is making this very clearly an acceptable version of this LARPing trend.
Hello everybody, my name is Larpaplier, and welcome to Let's Play Slender Hospice. It's a new map, and I'm sure they'll be just as scary as the other Slender games. Now, the atmosphere is pretty rad, but also pretty scary. Now we're looking for 8 pages once more, and believe me, I tried downloading the original 2012 version. I mean, everybody knows what Slender is, but believe me, I tried, but I couldn't get it to work.
What do we see here? One, he is kind of looking in the same way with Markiplier. He does have the haircut, and he is like kind of doing the same speaking patterns. But the point is that he's kind of playing up on these speaking patterns and talking about like playing up on the way that Markiplier used to talk. I'm someone who's watched Markiplier for over a decade. Like when he legitimately looked like this and he did this type of content. And you can tell this is very clearly a parody of it and is not trying to do a one-to-one like a recreation of Markiplier. He's like doing the very expressive or very like noticeable inhales, like he's going every single time when he's like breathing in. He's very long, extending his words longer than even old Markiplier would have done, and playing a horror game as old Markiplier did. So there are similarities, but the similarities and the things that kind of like made Markiplier unique are unbelievably played up. So you can tell that he's kind of just making a show out of it rather than trying to one-to-one recreate the Markiplier videos. He's not actually trying to just take over Markiplier and like fill in this gap of people who want Markiplier to go back to this type of content or are nostalgic for it. He's playing it up a little bit such that it's kind of just like you can tell this is just having fun with it. Well, reminiscing a little bit, but having fun with it and playing it up a lot. That's what makes it different. Techno Larp was doing like one-to-one recreations of trying to do these exact types of contents, trying to do the voice perfectly, which was one of the scariest parts. It's like he almost got the voice like down to a one-to-one. And like it looked like he was trying to take Technoblade's place. Where in this scenario, he's not trying to take Markiplier's spot. He's just playing it up because it's fun to, think about what Markiplier used to be and also make fun of it a little bit because of just how expressive and like the way he used to speak was kind of unique and interesting and what was one of the things that made him famous. And then another really famous type of LARPing content, which is, unbelievably impressive, I think it's funny to listen to, is the LARPing tombstone. That's another good version of LARP. Where you have this looping in the rooms, LARPing in the rooms remix of a song right here. Where like this is actually high content stuff. I'm gonna kind of talk over it because like you're gonna hear the music anyway. But like they don't use AI or not, but it's actually like, there's legitimate talent in here. And it's just like a Minecraft parody version of LARPing. It's a LARP parody version, which kind of makes it a lot better because once again, it's not trying to replace the living tombstone. It's just like playing it up a little bit and just having fun with the LARPing thing where it's just like you're taking the most extreme things of it and playing it up as a method of appreciation rather than a method of replacement. That's kind of the big thing. And you can just see also that this is done really well and done in a really high quality way without using AI, mind you. And so once again, the fundamental difference between these two things, between the good LARPers and the techno LARP, is that they're not trying to one-to-one recreate the person that they're LARPing. They are trying to play up the things that kind of made them famous and the things that like make people nostalgic. And one way to make fun of it, because it's kind of funny to do, and two, just to appreciate it. The difference between that is that techno LARP was trying to one-to-one create it all the way to the point where he legitimately got people who Technoblade collaborated with. And that's what just seemed like he was trying to replace him. That's the massive distinction that we need to make. Because I think this LARPing stuff is funny. It's a fun thing to see. But when you have people being opportunistic, like this Techno LARP guy, who was trying to, once again, take advantage of someone's fans missing him because he's not alive anymore, that's where it becomes a big issue. And I'm really hoping that just the Techno LARP guy's a fucking dumbass who doesn't have any sort of social awareness to understand why he's the problem here. And that he will eventually learn that this is why he's wrong, especially because he got asked to stop making content. But I'm just hoping that this doesn't like stop people from doing this LARPing content because once again, it is a fun way to appreciate beloved content creators and also have fun with them a little bit too. And I think that's a really fun thing to see, especially when, once again, like Larpapire, where we look back at content he made, 15 years ago and have enjoyment with it while also understanding how ridiculous it was that we were all watching this. And that's kind of the point of the LARPing thing, is to play it up a little bit and play up on the most extreme things to act like you're a fan when you're not really a fan. That's kind of where the word LARPing comes from in today's society. Obviously, it's live action roleplay where it actually like made sense. But now it's become just like saying you're faking being a fan and that's kind of a fun little thing to make fun of, while also, once again, appreciating those people who made the content that we all watched. But that's really what I wanted to talk about for today. Hopefully, this made any sense in any capacity. I was able to not be redundant to what everyone else has been saying about this. That's it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.